This episode of Small Business Leaders Podcast is brought to you by Adams Lane Photography.
Hi, and welcome to another edition of the Small Business Leaders Podcast, coming to you from the Legacy Podcast Studio in Kernersville, North Carolina. My name's Lamar Powell, and this is my beautiful co-host, and boy, I love that green jacket, Audra Adams.
Hi, and welcome back to Lamar. He's been on vacation forever. But we are glad to have him back in the studio today. And our guest today is Rieke and Jessica Clifford. And they are coming to us from the Miriam P. Brenner's Children's Museum in Greensboro, North Carolina. And they do so many things that it's innovative. And this conversation is going to be amazing. Yes. So let's get to it. Welcome, Joe and Jessica, to the table. We are so glad that you are here today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
Yes. So y'all, we're going to get into what you do right off the bat. Tell us what you do and where you do it.
Yeah, I can go first. So I'm just going to introduce myself how I normally do with a microphone in front of me. And that is, my name is Rieke, and I'm the president and CEO of the Miriam P. Brenner Children's Museum in downtown Greensboro.
That sounds really professional. And you know what you did? You sat up a little straighter. When you said, that was awesome.
Yeah. If the camera's right in front of me, I'm just,
And what about you, Jessica?
I'm Jessica Clifford, and I am the marketing manager. So a bit of everything. I have my hands in a lot of different things, from event planning to social media, the website, things like this nice podcast, and anytime someone needs me.
That's awesome. So what drew you first, Joe, to the Children's Museum?
Yeah, I've got kind of a fun story that I'll tell. I was a chef for almost 20 years.
Whoa,
yeah,
cool.
Yeah, is there a connection there?
We like
South Louisiana food.
We just like chefs.
I actually ran a southern barbecue restaurant in Seattle, Washington for about 5 years. So There was a barbecue renaissance in Seattle in 2014 through 2019. So where we just pillaged Southern culture to bring it to the Pacific Northwest. So I was a chef for a really long time, but got my start with nonprofits and education in probably 2008 when I started volunteering for an educational nonprofit based out of San Francisco, and really started to see the impact that the public can have when it gets involved in education. Mm-hmm. Got to work with kids 2 or 3 hours a week as kind of this volunteer piece of things that I was doing, especially around literacy. So creative writing, that kind of thing, with ages all the way from basically 6 to 18. So that had my background as I was cooking. And then when I had my first child, I needed to step out of the kitchens because a family life is not supported very well by a kitchen life. Yeah. And so the way that I did that is I started a nonprofit that focused on training high school kids how to cook. So kids that were already involved in culinary programs with their high schools. I started a nonprofit that connected them with the local restaurant industry in Seattle. So there was a bit of a back and forth. So we would bring chefs into the kitchens that are into the high schools to help train them and chef quality ingredients, and we'd set up internships with the kids in the Seattle restaurant scene as well. After about 2 years, my wife got a really great job offer in Greensboro, North Carolina. So I had to put that nonprofit to bed when it was kind of in its infancy, which is a sad thing for me to do. But I know this is a long story. Moved out here to Greensboro and ended up applying for the job at the Miriam P. Brenner Children's Museum, then known as the Greensboro Children's Museum, as their head of development. So and that was in 2018. And so I've been with them for just 6.5 years.
And you moved your way up the ladder.
I did. So, and I will say that, your development directors typically, a lot like marketing, has its hands in a lot of different pots. And then when my CEO retired, which she was ready to do probably prior to COVID, and then COVID came along.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah, I threw my hat in the what is the saying there? I threw my hat in the ring
Yes.
for her job, and ended up coming out on the other side of that with it. So
That is amazing.
That's great.
Such
great
leadership skills. Let me ask you one thing. Is the restaurant world, I know I'm pivoting
Please.
just in,
No.
is the restaurant world anything like is shown on The Bear?
Yeah. I would say that The Bear is the most realistic representation of the restaurant industry I've ever seen, because the one character that is most important is the clock, and that clock is a main character in The Bear.
It is.
And Jessica may have seen like the way I organize my days sometimes, but I write them between 8 and 6, and sometimes I know what I'm doing every 15 minutes, and so you can take that from The Bear too.
Okay.
That's where his coffee addiction, I think, came from. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Imagine,
goodness.
It all makes
I
sense.
just had to come back
no.
around to that because for personal reasons, I just needed to know.
Yeah, that's
You might need to be in a very peaceful state of mind to watch that show, actually, because
I probably won't watch it.
yeah,
then, because
you
I
have
want to
any-
stay in a peaceful state
it's
of mind.
stressful.
If you have any restaurant or family trauma that you haven't dealt with, then it'll come up.
It'll
Yeah.
bring it out.
Yes. Okay. Now that I've pivoted,
Yeah.
Oh,
we'll
wow.
go here to Jessica. How long have you been at the museum?
Oh, it will be 3 years in May. So, a little
Nice.
bit.
And where are you from?
Oh, that's a long story, but I will say all my family's from Massachusetts. But I grew up outside Scranton, Pennsylvania,
Okay.
so came all the way down to North Carolina.
For
Wow.
why?
For why? Partly for school, honestly. I actually thought I was going to go into nursing, and so that's how I went to UNCG, and that did not, happen. I loved writing, and so I ended up going into communication, and that fit me a lot more
It
than
does.
nursing.
Yeah, it does. We've had the pleasure as Adams Lane in Strategic Arts to work with the museum a lot more than several times.
Yeah.
And we've enjoyed it every single time. The wonderful thing about every time that we go is the creativity. Who is in charge of that? Who comes up with some of these things?
I would say, and correct me if I'm wrong, that it's a pretty, we present ourselves as a pretty flat organization, and there's a lot of input from a lot of different people a lot of the time. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah. We couldn't do it without everyone's voices, honestly, especially when it comes to the fun events that we do and just like our programs and our classes, our camps, everything is everyone is involved. You can't have your hands out of one thing at the museum.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
What's the size of y'all's team?
I was going to say, we have 35 employees. Well, I'll say between 25 and 35 employees, just depending on the seasonality of everything, right? And about 15 to 20 of those are part-time. And so really we deal with between 8 and 12. We're designed to have about 12 or 13 full-time staff. Whether or not we do at any given time throughout the year is, case to be made. And to Jessica's point, our education department or our education work team kind of does a lot of the camp and programs and after school stuff, and there's a lot of creativity there. Jessica and I probably work pretty hand in hand with what we, the outside exposure part thing, so the messaging communication that goes out to them, but the event you guys have been to, our development director Stephanie and large parts of the community put the gala on, right? So
this is no small shindig.
No.
The gala, you got to go. I normally bring one of the children to hold lights and, free labor, but you might need to go the next time.
Oh,
It's
just going to
amazing.
work me.
Oh, no, there's food trucks. There's all different
that's
things.
a different
No,
story.
come to enjoy.
Absolutely.
It's amazing. So,
cool.
as far as how did the museum come to be? Do you know that?
Yes, you. So we have two founders, basically. There was several founders, but there's two that are referenced the most. And one of them is named Jerry Hyman. And he went to San Francisco in 1992. And there's a children's museum, more of a hands-on museum than I would say a children's museum, called the Exploratorium, that used to be down right around, where the sourdough, pier is and all that kind of stuff. And it's moved to the Embarcadero area recently. I just got a visit there in October. But he went there and wanted to bring that back to Greensboro. He said Greensboro could really use something like this. And so he came back and shared his kind of vision with a woman named Cynthia Doyle, who's another one of our founders. And Cynthia, Jerry's the big ideas guy. So he had a huge idea that this could be transformational for not just Greensboro, downtown Greensboro, but the Greensboro area. And Cynthia she was just a steadfast worker. She knew how to get things done. And so Jerry the dreamer and Cynthia the doer came together, and they just worked and worked and worked and got together with like 6 or 7 like-minded kind of folks, and that's how it came about. I think between probably 92, the inspiration, and 96 is when they officially filed their the IRS nonprofit designation, I believe. And then the building kind of changed around a couple times, but by 1999 is when it finally opened. So,
And what's their background to make them want to have an interest in this, to bring it back home, so to speak?
I think for Jerry, I don't remember. Jerry was in real estate development, I want to say. And Cynthia was just a community powerhouse, right? I'm not sure what her professional background might have been, but she was a big community organizer, really knew how to get things done in the community, actually founded the community foundation based out of Greensboro as well, as one of the founding board members there. Okay. I think if you look at the research about children's museums, a lot of times you'll see children's museums exist in places that need improvement in downtown areas. And so a lot of times you'll look at a children's museum as a way to transform a place that needs to be transformed. And they saw it for that. And they also saw it because they understood that our community at that time, and continues to, was struggling with hands-on, fun, safe, kind of exploratory education places for children and families to be. And so it really was just a want to make things better. That was their inspiration. And I'm not sure it had much to do with their background.
So how important is that? So you what you just said, to have that hands-on experience.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you guys do every day.
Yeah.
Why is that so important?
I think kids go, especially right now, kids have a lot of formal learning opportunities, right? I mean, I'm going to go pick up my kid who's been at school since 7:20 in after-school care where they do homework. If this was the spring, we'd probably leave and we'd go do some sort of extracurricular, whether or not it's piano or soccer. So I think our kids, for the most part, have a very structured learning environment. And what we call our learning environment is an informal learning environment. And so that's the first part, right? We provide a safe, hands-on, informal learning environment. The hands-on piece of it is, what are we doing right now? We're recording things on a screen. We're talking into microphones. Mm-hmm. And so much of our kids' life is all about that as well. And so what we give them is real-life tactile experiences. If you go into our museum, as Jessica knows, there's not a lot of screens. There's maybe, 3?
Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. Because really what we want to do is provide that hands-on experience for kids to really play, learn, explore. And there's research that shows that this kind of child-led, free play behavior is what leads to successful education and development outcomes later on in life. And so that's why it's so important.
That's why I asked that question.
No.
That's exactly.
He's like, that was
why.
a good question.
It was.
It's a common question we
Teed
get.
that up for us.
Yeah, I think it's great. That's, I think, an important way for kids to learn. It's so important and necessary.
I've been taking my own children to the Greensboro as they were young.
Yeah.
I always had them.
How old are they now? I'm so sorry.
There's 6 of them, but
6 of them.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
The youngest is 17.
Oh, wow.
And it goes from 17 to 24.
Okay.
So
yeah,
I've got pictures in the big chair and just going around there, like the market.
Yes.
That is in there. It was, I feel like it's always been a little. Y'all tuned it up.
Yeah.
Several.
Our friends at the Fresh Market our friends at the Fresh Market.
One more time.
We're at the Fresh Market?
Yeah.
Wait, I think, Jessica, you need to say that too.
Yes, the Fresh Market. Thank you. No, but what's really great is hearing those stories, because we are 25 years old. This was our 25th anniversary back in May. Yeah, May 15th, I believe it was. And so we celebrated in July, and it's great hearing these stories of families that, were there, and now they're bringing grandkids there.
Yes.
And so it's kind of like a legacy that we have, which makes us stand out, especially in the area. There are a lot of children's museums and play areas now. We've got one down the street, the Greensboro Science Center, and, there's so many great places to take your child. And so we love that we've been here for so long, and that's what's so important to our story.
Absolutely. And it feels like there's enough nostalgia for me when I walk in of where it was 20 years ago to even where it was now, like the fire truck and all that was always...
The clock tower.
Yes. That was
big go-to.
Yeah. Always there. So Jessica, tell me, what is the most fulfilling part of your job, and then tell me what's the most challenging.
Yes. So I think for anyone, the most fulfilling part, if you ask anyone, like in our offices, would just be seeing the children smile and seeing families get to interact with each other. I think part of what Joe was saying about like all the screens, and that pulls us away from each other, especially with families. I don't have a child of my own right now, but I know that like even interacting with my own family, screens really take us away from that. And this is a place where people can get together, and families and friends, and just be one-on-one and pretend like they're kids again. And that's one of the best things, is when you see an adult who is ordering pizza, and the kid comes over and he drops it on the floor and picks it up.
Felt pizza for our listeners. The pizza are made out of felt. No cheese spilled.
No cheese spilled. But the kids will pick it up, and you walk by and you're like, that might not be the most sanitary pizza. And the parents start laughing, and they're like, I'm going to eat it anyways. So it's just really sweet seeing those interactions, because they're going to be super important when they're older.
Their memory of that is very clear. So just so you know, that it really does make a lasting impression.
That's great to hear.
And that's why they volunteer to come with us every year.
That's awesome.
And they're like, what's the theme? What can we dress
up?
For
the gala? Yeah.
For the gala. But what's the most challenging part?
Yes. I think just juggling all of the different things we have going on, whether it's like the events and marketing camps and marketing classes, and just having our hands in everything. I think that would probably be the hardest also for most people, is that when you're in a small organization, especially a nonprofit, you have to be a jack of all trades. One day you are, organizing an event like the gala, and then the next day you are cleaning up pee or, some bodily fluids.
Absolutely.
And you do it all, with, humility and love.
But class too. I would say you're a class act, as far as what I know for the past 3 years.
Well, thank you.
You're very welcome. That brings me to some of the exhibits.
Yeah.
How many exhibits? Why don't you tell us how many?
So we have, I think it's like 22 plus, because we have some things that are like, oh, that's an exhibit. And we have some things that are like, we'll count that as an exhibit,
Right.
Yeah. So I think we're at like probably 22 plus exhibits these days.
Did you have your hands in the beginning of the Edible Garden?
I did not, no. So the Edible Garden, 2010 was when that was founded. So almost 14 years now, almost 15 years, yeah.
But it kind of fits into like...
It's probably how I got my job, or why I got my job.
Yeah,
absolutely. So it definitely, and Jess talked about our legacy, right? Us being around 25 years, having kind of a differentiation, it being one of the things that people can latch on to. The other thing is that edible schoolyard as well, right? So just to give you, if it's okay, a brief kind of synopsis of what an edible schoolyard is. An edible schoolyard, the program was founded in Berkeley, California in the early 2000s by Chef Alice Waters. And Alice Waters was one of the people that was bringing food from farms to tables and feeding people with it, like in the earliest days of the slow food movement. So in like probably the mid 70s, I think, in Berkeley, California. So what Alice discovered was that there is not a ton of fresh food in schools. So the other edible schoolyard that exists, schoolyards that exist in the nation, I think there's 9 of them. All of them are attached to mostly public schools, or in Louisiana it gets a little bit different because y'all's public schools down there are called something different. I can't remember. In the parish schools. Parish schools, yeah. So one of the coolest edible schoolyards I've ever been to is in New Orleans, and they have 3 at 3 different schools. And it's really just about teaching kids about the food life cycle, as well as, more importantly, what to do with food once they have it in their hands. And so that's where we came in as a museum. If you look at the last 10, 15 years, Guilford County has been one of the hungriest places in America, from like the second hungriest place to America to currently like the 23rd hungriest place in America.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm so
Many food deserts in Guilford County. It's one of the worst, and there have been a lot of systems in place to try to,
get food to people.
And this is one of them. And honestly, it's been great because today I think our best sold like classes and camps all center around cooking, because families want to know about that, and
absolutely.
Kids want to get their hands dirty and like meet our chickens and plant seeds and harvest and then do something with it. And it's been really amazing seeing that kind of grow over, especially since COVID. Yeah. It's been coming back.
And have you gotten support from the local government as far as
That's a great question. We have many supporters and partners. The city of Greensboro has been a great partner to us for a long time. But also it's something that attracts funders like Duke Energy or Piedmont Natural Gas as well, some local foundations, really people that believe that food and food education is going to be important and is important to children. It is a very easy partnership to then stand up. I think, just circling back to what I was saying earlier a little bit, we have places like Backpack Beginnings, it's a good partner of ours, and food banks and stuff like that are really do put food in people's hands, right? And so we don't put food in people's hands. That's not really what we do. But our way that we support basically ensuring that people have access to food is by educating them about food. So let's just say you get a box of veggies and you're 9 years old. It's not really great to have a bunch of rhubarb delivered to you, like if you don't know what to do with rhubarb, right?
I'm much older than that, and I don't know.
Exactly. And so like one of the programs that we do run is kind of a food education where we give the kids, and this is outside the museum program, but we've run over the past couple of years with several different partners where we'll give the kids a test, 20 different fruits and vegetables, see where they score on that, and then we'll do 3 to 6 months of cooking classes with them and then give them the test again and see where they score on it. Because that way, if you get a zucchini or some rhubarb or some sort of asymmetrical squash delivered to you in a co-op box, you at least maybe know how to approach it, right? And so we just tried to, food is food, but some of these kids, like if they have access to something like this, they need to know how to prepare a fresh, healthy snack. So that's our intervention. And then that's the community piece of it. And Jessica just pointed out the other piece of it, which is really rallying people around food. And one of the values of the edible schoolyard system is that sitting down and sharing a meal together, sitting down and cooking together builds community. We all know this, right?
Yes.
We know this in our souls as humans, but it just builds understanding. And so that's really what the backbone of the edible schoolyard is all about.
Wow.
It's amazing.
And you just thought you were coming to go down the slide.
I've gone down that slide, trust me.
It's a good slide.
It might have been 17 years ago, but I did it. I don't know. I might do it again.
Yeah,
you probably
should.
Do you do it? Have you done it?
I have done it. Yes, you have to. I think it's part of
it's part of the training, onboarding.
One of the other exhibits, Lamar, that they have is kind of a grow. I don't even know how to explain that, where you step on things and
the climbers.
Are the growing place, the digital one.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
that one.
yeah, the growing place.
That is the most amazing exhibit. I love it every time I'm in there.
That one's a lot of fun too. And so that one, it's great to bring that up after the edible schoolyard, because what we talked about earlier, we talked about a lack of screens. Well, this is it has
One of our
three
only screens.
It has 3 screens, but we'll count it as 1 screen.
Yeah.
But it's a digital projection on 3 different, the floor and 2 walls, and it reacts to the kids as they move through it, or to you. And
Like to touch or
Yeah.
pressure.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it does things like grows vines or
Yeah.
creates a river, and they can divert. I mean, it's just,
But it's really hands-on.
Yeah.
It's really interactive. You don't just sit there and stare at it. And it also recreates the natural ecological cycle that they'll experience in the edible schoolyard as well, because it has a monitor. If you don't water the plants that your body has grown, then they will start to die. And so it kind of mirrors, in a fun way, the process that we are also exploring in the edible schoolyard. And it's just really unique looking. The people that designed it, he's just like, I don't know, the smartest man that ever had a computer in his hands, probably. And then his partner used to design costumes and sets on Broadway, and they came together. And now she does the character and like storyboard development, and he types it all in. So,
Wow.
so say they're creating, would they create something else in the future? Do you work with certain creators of the exhibits?
yeah. So if we wanted to do another one of those, we absolutely could. We just have to find one of those nice funding partners to help us do it.
All right, and that's what we're doing right here.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so strategy, and you know how to raise money, so you might have a question here, but
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously you're trying to expand your reach to educate as many as you can. And so as part of your job is pushing out marketing what you're doing. So what's your biggest challenge right now with that area?
Oh, I would say part of it's competition. Yes, but High Point and Winston-Salem both have amazing children's museums as well. We've visited them, and they are great. They're bright and shiny and new, and they've got some amazing things for kids as well.
They do.
So I think that's part of the challenge. We've got a lot of great play areas and educational areas for children and families to go to. So I think that's one of them. What else do you think?
yeah.
I think the idea of, it's like anything, right? So we need to ensure that we rise above the noise and people understand our offering and they understand what differentiates us, right? As Jess brought up, High Point and Winston-Salem both have amazing new children's museums. They're not duplicative of what we have, right?
No.
So we're all a bit differentiated, but there's some overlap. But really, too, it is just remember when I started talking about earlier, like waking up at 7 o'clock and going to bed at 8 and soccer and piano and all that stuff, as busy as we are, right? So how do we become an important place to folks in that busy life? And then the offerings that are out there, anymore, there's so many. I talk about this a lot, that we are all these things that I've been talking about, this great community resource, this place for hands-on play and education, this place that introduces kids to food, this place that values family interaction over technology, et cetera, et cetera. At the end of the day, what we also are too is an entertainment venue, right? Mm-hmm. And so we also have an increased competition in what people are going to spend their time doing with their young children. And that these days looks like not just t-ball, but t-ball and trampoline parks and painting pottery and all of these things where, like, in 2005, people were like, where do you go for a birthday party? And people were like, well, either the children's museum or the park. And now it's like, either the pottery class. I mean, it's my son's birthday tomorrow, and we're taking him to a soap making class at a soap making area. You know what I mean? And so there's just like all of this increased competition or increased things that now take up people's time.
So you have to be creative and really be on the ball with all of this, bringing in things that are new and different to get the story out about what you're about.
We just you're working up the birthday parties
Yes.
again. We were able to go and have be a part of that.
Yeah, that was great. Thank
a
you.
mock birthday party photo shoot.
Yeah, 2 mock birthdays. Yeah, with what, like 20 kids?
Yes,
Something
about
like
there.
that. But it was, I mean, they brought in pizza, and they brought real pizza, not the felt pizza.
Not the felt.
No.
No.
Could be a real cheese mess.
Yeah, it probably. But the way that, and I can only say because you were the one that was there, that you handle all the chaos and all the, it was just as smooth and as even as, anything I've ever seen. So I think that there's true, you can see your heart and true care for what you do in the place that you work in. And then I would say to you, Joe, are you, because you're the face of the museum, because you're the CEO, do you have to always you have to cultivate some relationships with donors? I mean, is that part of your...
I would say probably 60% of my job is partnership cultivation, and that can look like donors, right? It can look like folks that truly believe in our mission and want to help. It's our board, right? So our board of directors that we have is a lot of my job as well. FaceTime with basically any strategic or important partner is a huge part of my job, right? And the staff is included in that obviously as well, right? So I have a lot of hours where I'm answering emails, and I had to troubleshoot some of our exhibits with our brand new facility director today. As Jessica pointed out, there's some hands. It's just not a lot of hands, and so sometimes when we need more hands, it's all hands on deck. Right. And then you'll catch me sitting up straight on the news or at a lunch that week too. So it's a lot of different.
And are you able to collaborate with others across the country? And even though you're different, you're unique, you're in Greensboro, but you also have
ties
all
to
this.
the West
You
Coast.
have ties, obviously, with your background.
I would say that, what really helps us leverage even global relationships is a organization called the Association of Children's Museums, which is a global network of children's museums. We meet annually as a larger organization. There's like 60,000 or 70,000 children's museums just in the U.S. and like that goes up to like 120 or something when you look at it globally, and not all of those are members of ACM, but really getting together as professionals to think about, because the things we're talking about, like play is a very easy thing to kind of grasp. Like we all understand inherently what that is, but as professionals, we think about that all the time, and we think about it in an academic sense as well, right? So because there are cases to be made, it's funny. It's like the case for a children's museum is it's like a study that you can read or a book that you can read through, because there's all these things that show how beneficial children's museum can be for families and a community, but how beneficial children's museums actually are, when you look at it at a regional scope or a national scope or even a global scope and what they offer. We have opportunities to collaborate and do that kind of stuff, and there's lots of learning and lots of sharing that do go on, and lots of partnerships that do exist to help people really immerse themselves in kind of that.
And lots of play.
Yeah, lots of play. Lots of play.
Lots of play.
Even professional play at those conferences, play does still happen.
Yes, it has to.
I mean, you can't help one of the water features. You go by and it takes everything in you not to go and just splash in it just a little bit.
Yeah,
absolutely. And you're more than welcome to. Absolutely, whenever.
I'm usually there in a professional sense normally, so I try to act that way. The outside play area is phenomenal. Enormous.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it is, it is really something that kids, I see the decision making that it causes children to have. I'm sorry it took me so long to get that out, of how to navigate through that particular structure.
Yeah.
Like they have a lot of different decisions that they make, whether it be height, which way it goes. And for anybody that's going to be wondering what this looks like, it's on their website.
Yeah.
You need to just look at it. It's really masterfully done. And anyway,
It's 30 feet tall, I think, about there. And
two 30-foot tall pyramids.
Two of them, though, yes.
Yeah.
And the big slide that you were mentioning as well. And they came from Germany, right?
Yeah, it's from a company called Berliner. From Berlin. And at the time that it was built, I think there was only 6 or 7 of them in the States, and then there's probably a few more now. But yeah, it's a really unique structure.
It is.
Absolutely.
Yes. I got scared too, but it's so safe. It is.
You can only fall 6 feet. That's what it says in the instruction manual. 6 feet. So
As far as you know, that's fine. Now, going forward, I want to know what you want to see going forward, what you're pushing, anything like that.
We are doing a lot right now. We're
Yeah.
looking forward.
Yeah.
You can talk more about how, like, we just finished our most recent capital campaign called Building Forward Tomorrow, and we are now in strategic planning mode.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we just, if you kind of look, I'm going to dip into the past real quick, but with Building for Tomorrow, we got a new roof, we got a new HVAC system. We really, post-COVID, these are some things that need to be updated. Everything's 25 years old, right? We're 25 years old. There's a lot of our museum that's still 25 years old. So Building for Tomorrow really created a platform that got us these what started as infrastructure improvements, and it's when we went through our name change from the Greensboro Children's Museum to the Miriam P. Brenner Children's Museum, because we got a really, really great transformational gift from our friends, the Brenners. And it really is setting the foundation for what the next 25 years, because now that we don't have to worry about how many HVAC units are up and running versus not up and running, how many buckets we need to fix our roof, that our bathrooms will continue to flush for probably at least another 10 or 12 years, all that kind of stuff. Like the stuff that's not super important to kids, but is super important to parents, right? Especially post-COVID, safe, clean, these kinds of words. So we've built this thing, and as we look into strategic planning, we're now 4 months into that. We've been through a huge community listening segment over the next, and this is a really long way to answer your question. I'm so sorry.
This is
But
for you.
We've dug back in with a lot of people that have been with us for those 25 years, whether or not they were early donors, early founders, early board members, just community members, government officials, et cetera, and listened to their stories. We've sent out a survey probably to, I would say, tens of thousands of people at this point, of which only 200 or 300 have responded, but it's a pretty good return. It's a pretty good, we'll call it click rate, right, for that amount.
That's fine.
So we've heard from them. We're doing focus groups with our members. We're doing focus groups with our local education partners. We're doing focus groups with our local community development and economic development partners to really learn about what it is that they want to see in 25 years. Because we can come up with whatever we want, right?
Right.
But if the community's not invested in it, it doesn't really matter. So we're doing that part of it right now. We're doing the listening part. And then we have to, all that creativity that we talked about, all of these resources and connections that we have, then we have to really build that vision. But it has to be based in what our community wants, and that's what we're doing right now. For me, sharing this, like, what I want to see is Greensboro's growing. Like, we're here in Kernersville right now, and you guys are growing too. Like,
Yes.
we're in a good spot in North Carolina right now, right? Yeah. And so the investment that we've seen from global corporations over the last few years, and hopefully the tail end of investment that we'll continue to see, or the added investment that we'll continue to see over the next few years, we want to make sure that we're ready to be a part of that. And I think hands-on play and hands-on learning and actual experiences for kids are going to be part of what that is. We all know we have a large manufacturing background here in the Triad, in the Triangle, in the central North Carolina. We know that we were chosen by Honda Jet. We know we were chosen by Toyota. We know we were chosen by Boom Supersonic because of this manufacturing background, right? And so what we need to do is just ensure that kids continue to have that hands-on experience so that they can come and stay here and be the type of kids too that are provided the skills early on, or at least the exposure to some of the things that are going on in our community, right? And what a perfect place to do that. We do it right now. Like, it's just a police car and a fire truck, as opposed to working on a battery or like pretending to drive a supersonic airplane, right?
Yeah.
But kids have to see themselves in the places that they are in order to stay. One of the biggest things that drives me nuts is when I go and I say, we get a lot of kids from the local colleges that come and work for us basically between freshman and senior year. Sure. And then I say, what are you doing after graduation? They say, I'm moving to Atlanta. Like, well, what are you, A&T, where are you going afterwards? Are you staying here in Greensboro? Oh no, I'm moving to Atlanta. Oh, I'm moving to the West Coast. I'm moving to San Francisco, because we don't do a great job of keeping those kids here. And so, but if they can see themselves here, if we provide the opportunities for them here, if they built something here with their hands early on, then hopefully they'll stick around.
That is.
We have such an amazing area too.
Yeah.
I'm so impressed. I mean, where I'm from, it is so different, and a lot of positive things I see in the Triad. I really love it. And you see all these large corporations coming in, and they're actually looking for what we have here, all these different things, such as y'all's museum is a great part of that.
Yeah.
And to market to them, to let them know and let them be a part of that would be great.
I think a great idea would be for Honda Jet, shout out, to to put some sort of Honda Jet either in the museum or specifically to take children somewhere and families. Honda, I'm telling you, this would be great, right?
So I'm
kind of working for you right now.
Yeah, please do and continue. We were actually in talks with them a couple of years ago, maybe a year ago, to get one, and we're just like, we don't have anywhere to put it, right? So we need to build the place to put it.
Yeah.
And that's part of it. My development director, who's part of the strategic planning right now, talks a lot and I love this idea about putting something up high so kids can see the whole town and see what's around them. And we're like, how do we put like a airplane on a 60-foot tower that kids like these are the type of things we think about, right? Because it's a children's museum. You can do zany stuff. You just got to figure out who's going to help you do it. But and
the money.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I think there's a lot of fun stuff that's coming down the pipeline for us. And we're really hoping to again, build that thing that the community really wants to see, and more importantly, build the thing that is going to help sustain the community for another 25 years, just like we have for the past 25.
I think that is so well said and perfect for to even be thinking about, hey, this college kid said, I want to move to Atlanta, and you're saying, I want to make it to where they wanted to stay.
Yeah.
I think that is, nobody's ever said that.
Well, you don't think it all can, the Children's Museum isn't the solve for all of it, but it is definitely a place where things happen, right?
Well, and I'll tell you something else from a different perspective as a mom.
Yeah, the most important perspective, the parent-caregiver perspective, yes. Yeah.
But number one, it's accessible financially. That's number one. And then number two, moms, if you're a stay-at-home mom, if you're a homeschool mom, if you're whatever, you need a break. You need a safe break. And to go into there, instead of taking them just to Chick-fil-A and let them play on that, to go through that museum was like a day off for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we would plan it, all the time that we would come there. So
no mess. No mess at home.
No.
My friend Tara says, and she was pregnant with 2 twins at the time, she was like, I just love coming here because I don't have to pick anything up. You guys do it for me.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah. But and back to the felt pizza, because it always comes back to the felt pizza too,
does.
because the felt pizza is the one example that I use for how things actually are working, right? So you just think you're making pizza with your kids, and you're putting pepperoni and felt olives, felt cheese on these pieces of pizza, but that piece of pizza is in 4 segments, and only 4 pieces of cheese fit on that pizza, and only 4 pieces of sauce fit on that pizza. And then you start sorting the different toppings onto it. And really what these kids are doing, that is literally one of the basic learning foundations for mathematics.
Yeah.
And every exhibit takes that into account. So what are the kids going to be doing in here? They all tie back to the North Carolina Early Childhood Learning Foundations, right? So if a teacher's coming in and saying, hey, we're learning about X, Y, and Z, we can say, well, you really want to focus on exhibit A, B, and C, right? And this is where that learning is going to happen. If you're just a stay-at-home parent, or even a parent that's after work and just needs a quick hour break, you're just playing pizza, you're just playing Water Wonders, but your kids are developing foundational skills that, especially when they're between 1 and 4 or 1 and 6, are going to help them get ready for school.
It's so true.
Yeah.
It is so true. Well, I want to say thank you
Thanks.
for what y'all are doing and the way that you're doing it. It's not just what you're doing it, but the thoughtfulness behind it.
And it's a lot of work.
It is.
I mean, I'm picturing in my mind juggling all of these different things. We're talking about the past, we're talking about the present, we're talking about
the future.
And the future, and man, it's a lot to it.
It is, but y'all are making it happen.
And hopefully that strategic plan will really hone all of that
Yes.
into one cohesive message that we're starting to tell and work on. Yeah.
That's right.
Strategic.
Strategic.
Strategy.
Yes.
Strategy?
Strategy.
Strategize.
Are you going to put a vocab exhibit in here?
He's not going to be the one leading it, but yeah.
It's the coffee. It's the coffee.
Wow.
So for our viewers and listeners, where can we find y'all
Yes.
on the interwebs?
It is mbcmuseum.com. We are on Facebook, and we are also on Instagram, so you can find us on there.
And that's at MBC Museum. Both of those are that. Right?
Not Instagram. Instagram's MBP or MPB Museum.
Yeah.
Yes, mpbmuseum.com. Or without the .com. Jeez, I think I had too much coffee too. Yeah, and thank you guys for having us. We really appreciate it.
It's fun to talk about it.
It is. It's fun to learn about
Especially
it.
to this microphone. With ooh.
Yes, I agree.
Did you forget it was there?
I did. I actually don't mind it as much anymore.
Yeah, we promised Jessica when we started she would forget about the microphone. Because we're really just having an honest conversation.
Yeah.
So
It's great.
And I will again say thank you for joining us. Please, viewers and listeners, go and look them up. If you're in the Triad area, it is a can't miss kind of thing. If you have children, or even if you just want to go slide down a slide yourself.
Yes. And one other thing is it is very accessible. We have our WIC, EBT, and SNAP benefits program, which is new, our Play program. And it's only $5 if you have one
All
of
day,
those
any
benefit
day.
cards. Yes.
Wow.
And Fridays, it's only from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. It's $5 as well. So definitely very accessible. So.
Yes,
Good.
pay attention to that. Pay
Lots
attention
of
to
parking.
that. Yeah, there is lots of parking. So please look up Legacy Podcast Studio. If you want to come in and do your own podcast, we are a plug and play kind of place. We don't play quite like the museum does. A turnkey production is something that we have here. And we would also love your questions if you have questions about certain businesses. Also, if you have people that are business-minded that you think need to be on this show, please let us know. All Instagram, Facebook, Google, YouTube, all of them.
All of
Apple.
them.
Find us and come sit at our table for just a little while.
Yes.
Thanks so much, and bye.
Bye.